I'm Chris Shattuck, and this is how to build and modify a Drupal theme or sub-theme. In this video, we're going to take a look at how a theme works and how to build a theme or a sub-theme from scratch. In this section, what we're going to do is look at the themes that ship with core Drupal. We'll look at some of the other folders that are included in the themes directory, and then we'll show you where to put a new theme as you're adding it to your Drupal site. I'm starting here in the root directory of the Drupal site, and what I'm going to do is expand the themes folder here, and let's take a look at what's inside. Now, several of these folders are themes that are included with Drupal, and that's Bartik, Garland, Seven, and Stark. And then there's two other folders here, Engines and Tests. So let's go ahead and knock out these other folders and then take a look at what the different themes are for. Let's go ahead and start with the Engines folder. Before I go into detail about what's inside this folder, let me briefly explain what engines are and why you probably won't hear them mentioned very much throughout these tutorials. 99% of the time, Drupal uses a template engine called PHP template. And as we work through using templates and working with PHP inside of templates, you're actually seeing PHP template, the template engine, in action. All it does is allow us to use that PHP inside of the template file. Now, there are other engines out there that attempt to simplify the process of building a template by layering on top of PHP a separate language that allows themers to use the template files without having to understand PHP constructs. And so in some cases, these other engines will be used, but almost all of the time PHP template is the one used. It's the only one that's shipped with Drupal, and it's what 99% of the themes are built off of. You don't need to actually interact with the engine layer explicitly, but just know that when you're working with template.php or any of the theme files, that there's some aspect of what you're doing that does interact with the engine. Okay, let's go ahead and expand this engines folder and see what's inside. You see there's just one folder called PHP template, and again, if there were multiple engines, they would exist as other folders inside of this engines folder. And when we expand that, we see just one file, phptemplate.engine. Now, because nearly all Drupal work is built off of PHP template, you don't really need to know a whole lot about the other template systems that are out there. But just know that if there's a use case for you where you really need to simplify the process of creating templates or interact with a templating language like Smarty that's being used on another project, then you can use engines, install extra engines inside of Drupal in order to use those template structures. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this. And let's take a look at that second folder called Tests. You'll see tests folders throughout Drupal in module folders, and then this one in the themes directory. And what they typically do is include a series of tests that can be run in an automated fashion in order to make sure that changes to Drupal core, or as you're adding new modules to your site, for example, don't break the current functionality of Drupal. This particular tests directory includes some themes that are used for the testing process. So modules, for example, can enable or disable these themes when they are running particular tests. So it includes a basic theme with a template.php file. Let's go ahead and expand it to take a look. So this test theme includes a template.php and info file, and we'll talk about theme structure in a soon-to-come video. And then there's a base theme and sub-theme to be able to test modules or functionality against the base theme or a sub-theme structure. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Now let's take a look at the themes that are included here. Bartik is the default theme that you'll see on the front end of Drupal. And then if we look down here, Seven is the theme that you'll see on the administrative side of Drupal. So there can be two themes running concurrently on Drupal, one for the administrative side and one for the front end. And this allows administrators to know clearly when they've moved from working with the front end side to working with the back end. So Bartik is the front end, and we'll go ahead and take a look at how it has its file structures set up in just a second. Garland is another front end theme that can be used, but it's disabled by default. And finally, there's Stark. The role of the Stark theme is twofold. First of all, it layers very minimal CSS on top of what exists in Drupal core. So when you enable Stark, the only CSS that gets added is to position the output into a traditional 3-column layout and with a header and footer. Besides that, nothing is added. So you can enable Stark in order to take a look at what might be going wrong with your theme outside of the theme itself. So for example, if a module is adding CSS or JavaScript that's manipulating the output in some way, you can enable Stark to isolate it out to that module rather than having to look through the theme layer and figure out what's going on there. The second aspect of it is that because it's so basic, you can get a feel for what Drupal handles on its own without an additional theme on top of it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Now let's take a look at where we put a new theme if we're adding it to Drupal. What we're going to do is open up the sites directory, and I'm going to collapse the modules directory. And here in this themes directory is where we're going to put additional themes. Now the reason why we put it here rather than in the themes directory that's at the Drupal root is that as there are updates to Drupal, we want to be able to easily extract any additional modules or themes that we've added to our site and update Drupal and then add our files back in. And if we add it to the themes directory in the root of Drupal, it's going to be a lot harder to determine where our custom files and themes have been added to. So when we add it to the sites all directory instead, this allows us to know exactly where they are as we make those upgrades.